enjoy it because I think it brings back good memories. But now they're just not as enthused at just jumping in it and scrunching around in it like they used to.
Yeah, they're so scrunchy, and it's really fun and with all the colorful scrunchiness. Before the rain started, it was all crunchy and lovely. It is fun. It's fun to make those noises. It's musical, you march through it. It's part of the
And they
music.
feel the textures of it, and
Mhm.
it's and what I was told. So some of my friends, their kids have autism, and that's one of the things that they have a lot of fun in taking them out to do is playing the leaves. They love it.
Well, it is
One thing
fun.
that we used to do when we were kids, we would literally roll in the mud, and my mother would get really upset, because she had to do the wash. But my dad would always say, "Well, it's good for them. It builds their robustness in front of with respect to germs and stuff."
Yeah, it gives you soil bacteria, those nice, powerful healers that are in there. So, yeah, I think it's good for kids to get their hands and just get in the dirt and the muck and gardening and shoveling and raking. And they love it. It's so much fun. It is just a wonderful, wonderful thing to take it all in when you're little. Or when you're big, or when you're old, it's still great. I love the worms and all those things.
Get in the muck. That's going to be my motto for the next week.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I like that. It's a good.
that's
That's
a
a good
good one.
motto.
Yep, we're getting some muck now. The muck is starting. It does get old, however.
I went to I attended the Fair Fight trial a couple of days ago, Fair Fight versus True the Vote, and that was really eye-opening. And I'm going to do a separate broadcast dedicated to that later in the week. But that talk about muck.
Did you see Heather Mullins there? She was there covering it.
I did not see. I saw a person who I think could have been Heather, but based on what I've seen of her, I didn't think she was there.
Well, what's your quick take on what you saw?
Well, I was surprised. I didn't see very many people from Georgia at all. A lot of them were here from the Northeast, the East Coast, Philadelphia, Baltimore, New York, and I think as far as I could tell, there were maybe 4 people from Georgia.
Well, actually, so they had 3 things going on at the Capitol at the same time. So down at the Capitol, they're trying to change some of the word verbiage in legislation, and in order to push through another suit that they're trying to stop. It's not True the Vote, but it's Garland Favoritos. So
Right.
the Georgia Votes, the Constitution Party, they were pushing for legislation change, where True the Vote was theirs was in Gainesville, and it was a little bit more nuanced because they're getting into the details of the back and forth between Connect, but and hopefully they dig in to how things were leaked. But a lot of people in Georgia, we were trying to push back against a word verbiage change, which would cause another election issue. Plus the ballot images, we want to touch the physical ballots, and that's a fight going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of that is in the legislation. So at the same time, and they did that at the same time, where it's hard for everyone to be at 2 different places at once. And it's a typical thing that's done. They do it at the same time and on the same 3 or 4 days, and then they hype one and not the other, and it's very difficult.
Well, it seems like the other thing, too, that we really need to push for, besides paper ballots, is that the signatures are not read electronically, but have to be visually verified. It's going to take more people to do it, but we're not going to have fair voting until we get rid of all the machine shenanigans.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, Harry the Greek said it best a few days ago. If you don't go to straight paper ballots, there's very little hope for any kind of fair election.
But even if we go to paper ballots and then have them, optically scanned, and you can still change the percentage, then it's not going to help. So we need to go all the way to, human observation of the signatures. You
Well,
know,
Linda Hall in the chat said something a couple weeks ago about in third world countries, they dip their finger in ink,
mhm.
removable ink, so that they can't vote a second time. But this is not a hard problem to solve.
No,
This,
it isn't a hard problem, and it's caused by the machines and the optical readers and the adjustments that can be made in the back end. So it didn't used to be like that, you know, before this happened. It was harder. People could still, and when we were listening to all of the recordings of the Senate hearings in all the different states, there are other ways that you can, the old ways of you know, changing the ballots as well, and like the locked boxes that were in Michigan. I mean, every state had its old ways of putting their finger on the truth. So there are many ways, and we'll still have to look out for those ways. But these giant, big, sweeping, being able to just change and quickly hundreds and thousands or millions of votes all at once offshore, this has to be stopped. Well, I thought George had a real interesting program a few days ago. I think the title of it was Vaccinate Against Fake News. And then he was talking about the Mosaic method and how the Mosaic method is used, you know, by the military, by the government. But what the Mosaic method is all these different perceptions that all come together and discuss it and make a plan, and that how you know, that's what our international news desk does. We all have our own perception, and then we kind of go from a soft focus, which is really like a hunter will sort of soften their eyes and soften their ears to be able to see where's the motion, and then you focus in on that, and everybody's doing it as a herd. You do it in the round from a big, large area. There's different scouts that hear things from their point of view, and they stick their head up and they look towards the problem until everybody agrees, or enough people or deers or whoever is in the herd see it and feel it and perceive it, and then as a group, the whole plan is changed. It's not like one person saying, okay, this has happened, so now we're gonna, the leader, it's not the leader, it's the herd perceiving it together. And I think that is kind of what we're doing as the international news desk, is we're all perceiving it from our own perception, our own point of view. Our ears are to the ground, we're watching it with a soft focus, and then we're sounding the alarm. Okay, we're seeing
Well,
something here.
Well, what I will say though, what I found is the reason why it takes so long and it's so difficult is there's a lot of people in the herd that want to be the leader. So it becomes, no, I know what's best. And then there's the whole deceptive part with, how do you know what's best? Do you work for the very entities that are causing it? And is that why you're so angry, wanting to push in a leadership position to guide? So it's kind of like a bunch of people in a herd that don't actually have a shepherd, and no one will claim to be a shepherd, but out of the blue, someone will pop up and say, this is the best way to go, this is where we go. But you know, there's like a deception kind of there, because they're so determined and sure that this is the only way to go, that so many times people get splintered off from the group, and then they find it was a dead end. And so I think that's the difference between us and the animals, is that, you know, here we are thinking that there should be just this natural way. And it would be if there wasn't the manipulative factors that were like, well, we had to put this into motion so we could cause this stock to go up, so that then we could boost this company, so that then we could take over this market in this country, so that we could get this resource. So in order to do that, we had to take some losses, and we had to cause this to then gain the trust of this. And there's a pattern following. And then we're all just like, oh my God, we got to do something to save it. and then we're mocked. Oh, you have to stand up and do it. You have to stand up and do it. And the minute you do, you get knocked down because it's like, no, you're not doing it right. Well, what do you mean I'm not doing it right? Like, if there's a right way to do it, why don't you do it already? And why doesn't it stop? And so it's just this constant, and that's the
Yeah.
thing about the
Well, you're
like
exactly
people
right
with
about the,
brain versus like animal instinct. We're
yeah.
going off of manipulation, not instinct.
But the deception is also in the herd too. There's the hunters are trying to
Yes.
deceive the
Yes.
herd, and that's where our own discernment has to come in. And
That's
as
hard.
the scouts, we have to feel that, and we've seen it. And George is reporting on it over and over again. Here's somebody who's presenting presenting that they're on this side, when in fact you look back at their history and that's not the case at all. And we have to look deeper and
Right.
and sense that deception. That's
So
really important part of it.
what's difficult about the discernment is it's trying to convince everybody they need to remain sober minded, and like forthright, where every day they wake up with that purpose and not get caught up in a humble brag, or I know this person, or I know this person, or someone being able to come in and stroke your ego in order to get you to maneuver, because that's where discernment gets lost. Because I've noticed that a lot of people that are predators in this, they look for those who have discernment, and then they go in and then they give them what they're lacking. So if they're lacking attention, if they're lacking validity, if they're lacking money, whatever it is that they're in need of, they can quite convince them that, here, I just want to help you out. Here's this. And then meanwhile, someone who had great discernment is not discerning at all. And so I think it's most important that we stay sober minded. And that's very difficult in times of stress, because even in the Bible, it says, let the poor man drink, because that's, what he has. But like a lot of times when we get numb and we're sad, our decision-making skills are not so good when we're not of sober mind, and we're not able to think as wise as leading a group. And that's the difficult thing. There's a lot of people that want to lead a group, and then when a group follows them and then the group has questions, they're like, well, you need to go and form your own thing. The whole point was they said, here, follow me, and we can make a difference. So there's a lot of the back and forth of, well, you're not doing what I say right now, so you go find your own group. I'm doing my own thing. And then when you then do go find another group, then it's like, well, you're a traitor. You didn't follow me. And you can see this all throughout the Twitter spaces and social media. And it's like, come on, let me have you follow me. I'll show you where to go. And then the group says, hey, did you notice this? The person's like, yeah, but that's not important. And if the group perceives it is important and moves forward with it, then that person, in order to gain authority, will punish or will ostracize himself from them, but then later blame them for the debacle. And I've seen this on every level: government, private, friendships, like it's just, and it's a human thing. It's a human thing.
About the grief is really important too, because I think that mesmerization and manipulation through taking advantage of people's grief individually and collectively, and that we keep getting these huge hits over and over again before you can really get your equilibrium. There you are again. So in a vulnerable position, because the rug is pulled out from under you. So and this is what we're seeing, the programs, the endless wars, the endless weather anomalies, or whatever we want to call them, the endless illness that is ill-treated and made worse. And yeah, there's people whose families are just dealing with death after death after death and trauma.
Absolutely.
And you can't think straight. There's a process of dealing with that where you're vulnerable. So yeah, this is a tough 5-dimensional warfare. Fifth, is that what it's called? There's a word about that.
Fifth dimensional, yes.
Yeah, it's it attacks us on every single level.
Yeah, when they talk about full spectrum dominance in that 99 document, 98, 99, I'm not sure. they really meant it. They meant that every single thing was being considered. Any possible comeback that the little people might have would be anticipated, and they just keep us running and running and running, and we never have time to take coherent decisions. And a lot of people have asked me, a lot of my friends and relatives back in Italy have asked me to write my interpretation of how things got so bad in Italy over a 55-year time frame. And I think it comes down to what Amber was saying before. We were taking extremely poor decisions at the family level, at the small community level, at the small organizational level, at the county level, because all of these groups are intertwined in some way. And so there's no real leader and there's no real decision making going on.
Yeah, and one of the levels that I think we're sort of aware of as moms, especially, is the food and how the high levels of toxicity. I came upon this video that I sent you, John, and where a group of moms did an analysis because they found that everybody knows fast food has a lot of issues, but what people aren't aware of is that that is a huge part of the school lunch program now is fast foods. And so the group of moms that was all over, like we are, they have moms all over the country, and they sent in samples of their lunches from their schools and analyzed it and found these really high levels of toxicity and low levels of nutrients. So I've got about 3 minutes if we want to look at that. It's pretty powerful because we're not noticing those little things. There's so many things coming at us that you think, okay, the school lunches are at least safe, but no, they're not.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put that up. But yeah, everybody needs to pick one topic and then really, really get involved, and don't allow yourself to get too distracted by the rest. Here we go. Do you eat fast food? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't share the audio. I'll try again. All right, here we go. Can you hear it?
It's very quiet.
Help send in samples of fast food.
There.
They also did this at school lunches from 18 different locations, and we appreciate them.
So let's talk about why you wanted to focus on fast food in general. I know a lot of us moms, we use fast food. It's quick, it's easy, it's cheap. So is that why you wanted to focus on it?
Well, not just that for that reason. I mean, it is eaten by 85 million Americans a day, and we do have a health crisis in America, so we wanted to investigate them for that reason, if there's a possible connection, but also because they supply the majority of school lunches. We learned this when we did school lunch testing last year from a school lunch director, and so we wanted to go to the source of where the schools are getting their food.
And we're talking about restaurants that we all know and love. Can you talk a little bit about what you found?
Sure. Yes, we tested the top 20 most popular restaurants plus one more, which was In-N-Out restaurant because they claim to be more healthy. And we found some very disturbing results. For instance, we tested for glyphosate, the most widely used herbicide in the world. And in school lunches, we found them in 95.3% positive for glyphosate, 100% in the fast food samples. Pesticides we found between 74 and 76% positive in both school lunches and fast food. Heavy metals were found in 100% of the samples, and some levels up to 6,000 times higher than what the EPA allows in drinking water. And these can cause lifelong neurological damages. So that was extremely concerning. And the highest levels were the heavy metals were in In-N-Out French fries, actually. And also the lead was found in a Sonic cheeseburger. We also found veterinary drugs and hormones in up to 9 of the samples. and some of them are not approved by the FDA for human use. They're very toxic in horses and dogs and can cause their hind legs to be paralyzed. And we also found a aviary contraceptive in a Chick-fil-A sandwich. And we do not know what that's doing to humans. So we're very concerned about that. Found harmful antibiotics. And of course, the calories were higher than what they should be. The minerals are lower than what they should be. And vitamin B, for instance, was very concerning. A woman would have to eat 333 Chick-fil-A sandwiches in order to meet her daily recommended intake of vitamin B. A man would have to eat 380 Chick-fil-A sandwiches. So, of course, we are very concerned about the low levels of minerals that Americans are consuming by consistently consuming school lunches and fast food, and the high levels of toxicity, which are contributing to disease in America.
So what do you recommend us parents do?
Well, we recommend that we budget differently and save up for organic, grow your own food, buy organic as much as possible. Regenerative organic agriculture actually helps protect the soil and draw down carbon and can give us higher nutrient density food. So that's what we recommend as much as possible to support your local organic farmers.
Now, is there a plan to take these results somewhere to nationally? What do you plan to do with these test results?
Well, I thank you for asking. Yes, we just did. We did a U.S. Congressional briefing. Senator Cory Booker's office helped organize that. And we presented this information to many congressional aides. We did talk to the USDA. We hope to speak to the FDA next. We did test over 40 samples. That is a scientifically significant number. So this information cannot be ignored. And we hope that policy change will be happening very soon.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think this is the fifth generation warfare that we're seeing, that is weakening people. It's called non-lethal weapons, and is weakening our immune systems. It's weakening our health on children, on pregnant people, on everybody. So it's something that's not recognized as warfare, but I think it's time to call it out, because it is. And it's that's one of the fronts, but we're seeing it in so many fronts that we just need to call it out. And that group really reminds me of Ospreys, because they're all over the country. They're all working together from different points of view, and they're putting it together and putting an analysis out that's powerful. So, we're not the only ones doing this, and that's cool to realize. Sometimes it feels lonely.
What surprises me is the levels of glyphosate in that study, because the Monsanto has already lost 6 big lawsuits, multi-million-dollar lawsuits, because of their use of Roundup, and pushing the marketing of Roundup in every nook and cranny in our big stores. And even though they have lost these 6 big lawsuits, the FDA has not banned the sale of Roundup.
Well, there's a reason for that, because people settle. The people who sue them end up doing a settlement, and that means that they don't get sanctioned. They just pay a bunch of money, and they can keep doing what they're doing. And also, we know what the FDA is approving. They're in the pocket of these big companies. That's the unholy alliance.
Well, they've made it to where you have to be kind of altruistic when you sue. And what's difficult is, like, usually when people sue, they had a family member that suffered. Their medical bills are outrageous, and then they need compensation for that. And then because they take that, and then they drag it out so long, and the person's like, I'm going to end up homeless if I'm not able to pay these bills. So then they take the settlement. And so it actually takes someone who already has significant funds, or has lawyers in their family that are willing to represent them, and has had this tragedy, and is altruistic, and really just wants to do what's right, and doesn't want to be forced to, take a settlement. And that's a difficult task, is to find those people.
Yeah, other countries have done it. Like in Russia, they banned glyphosate. And, you can just do it. If we had an FDA that actually cared about people, that would be what's happening. And I think the EU has much stricter rules about glyphosate, but we don't have them. We're just, the public-private partnership is just too tight here. So
It's gross. It's
yeah.
gross, and we should be ashamed.
Well,
It's
that's
it's one thing to allow companies to be successful. It's another thing to allow them to destroy, decimate, and kill people. And I think that's where people are getting mixed up with, oh, I believe in capitalism. Yeah, you can believe in capitalism and not allow crony capitalist companies to destroy the very people they're selling products to. I mean, it's not either one extreme or another. There is a 1,000, a million, 2 million, 3 million things that you can do in order to have that open economy, but to also have those particular regulations. It's not hard to say if this product kills or hurts or is toxic to a human body, nay, nay, ta-ta, nay, nay. And it should be that simple. And yet they make it complicated to confuse.
Well, it's complicated also in the USDA, what is called organic now. You can vaccinate the chickens, the beef, and it's not part of the organic certification. That's one way that the mRNA can get into our food and still call it organic. It still has the stamp on there. So there's all kinds of trickery going on.
It's a shame. It really is. It's a shame.
Well, I think once people start noticing this and waking up, then they're more open to how many levels it's going on. They just want to say, no, people are good, they wouldn't do this. But once they say, oh, we've been tricked, and they have to face it because people are dying in their family, then, I think things can change quickly, like the herd lifting up their heads and all pointing in the direction.
I like the positivity, and I think we should use words in order to do that. But I think that's also why people who are saying it are stifled, and it's very difficult for them to get that word out. That's become such a pain, is to know that the algorithm is set, that those who are speaking what everyone needs to hear seems to be put to the back burner, and those who are towing the line of pushing forward an agenda, their numbers go way up. It's so frustrating.
It's very frustrating. We see it all the time. And, I just talked to a friend I'd been trying to reach because I knew she had a condo in Acapulco. I knew they went in the fall. I hadn't talked to her in a long time and about that for many years. So I was really worried when I couldn't get through to her. And I finally did. And she's okay. She'd already sold the condo, timeshare had run out a couple of years ago, so they hadn't been going down there, but they did have a lot of friends. And she was well aware of what had happened there and the connection to Lahaina. She was well aware of that. But she'd also had a double mastectomy recently after taking the shot. She just got a new booster, so I had to kind of wake her up to that. She can see some of it, and she was open to it, but she's at the same time drinking the Kool-Aid. So it's the coast, the West Coast, it's just like that. People that have awareness on one thing or on many things are blind to other things. So we just have to.
But I think they're exploited. And what I mean by that is, let's say there's a group of people who want not to be persecuted because of their beliefs, which in fact favors those who are religious minded, because then it keeps certain denominations from being able to dominate others. So it's a safeguard for that. But at the same time, there are particular groups that say, no, we're going to force that ours is the only one. And they utilize those belief systems in order to fire up that group and say, we should have zero religion. We should have zero belief system, which is ridiculous, because then it takes away the rights of everybody. And then they come off looking like loonies, but that was done on purpose, knowing that it would be easy to get them to say, so much freedom that you can't even walk because you're a noodle and you have no idea what's going on. And in order to get your rights, you have to scream in somebody else's face that they don't get any, and so they go to those passions of people, and then they exploit and exaggerate what it is that they should be standing up for. And they say, damn, these people are trying to do this and this and this. And everyone goes, rabble, rabble, rabble. And it's actually going to take away more rights. And they did it on purpose in order to show the absurdity of those groups of people and what they're willing to do to take away all liberties and rights. And then it forces people to go all the way back to where they wanted them to be to begin with, which is a couple of denominations. And so it's a back and forth in which, oh, so you're not going to play my game the way I want you to? Well, I'll have you fall for a trap. This is what I'll do. I know you're so hippy dippy crazy whippy. I'm going to get you to agree to this. And then people are going to think you're crazy because you're saying little boys can be little girls. And you're going to give them medicine. And you're going to do this because you've gotten so far with like, give me my right to do everything. Then now we're going to make, we only had a fraction of people. Now we have 15 fractions of people and our numbers are growing. So now you can't stave off the inevitable, forcing people to one type of denomination and going back to the old days of the fight between the Catholics and the Protestants, and then having the Ottoman Empire. So it's like going back into those old days of like the Teutonic Knights and the pagans fighting. And so you got to get rid of all of the other people who evolved and actually took us to a place where we were able to worship as we see fit. And someone came in to exploit it and said, no, you're going to worship my way or no way. And it seems like that's the fight that still has not ceased. And then you've got all the goobers that say rabble, 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 and not knowing what they're rabbling.
Well, it is the Hegelian dialectic for sure and it doesn't matter if it's the Protestants or the Catholics or whatever. It's the two sides pitted against each other, and it happens all over the world. And it, we
always
over and over and over and over again. So it's time to come together as humans and defend our humanity, which is under attack.
Yeah, another way that they're doing it is with this trial, True the Vote versus Fair Fight. They're making it obvious to anyone who reads the newspaper that you better think twice before you say anything against the official narrative, whether it's election fraud or whether it's the right of immigrants to immediately vote. You better think twice, because we will make you look like a total idiot if you raise your voice too loud.
Mm-hmm. But I think there's the underground. There's a collective knowledge that is getting more awake to these shenanigans, and so it's at some point the numbers will make a rapid shift. It's just normally,
I agree, it just takes a while.
Yeah,
and by the time it changes, and by the time it changes, people really don't notice, because what it's the emergency and the pain and suffering is gone to the point where they're not appreciative of the change that took forever to get there, and now they're on to something else. But that thing that was just a crisis is now taken care of, where it can't happen, but people are on to the next crisis. And that's where it becomes like, and people give up and get burnt out, because like, okay, now there won't be any more mandates of this. There'll be no more of this. But by that time that happens, well, now you've got a world war. Now you have this, and now everybody's on to that. And then nobody looks back and says, oh, these are the people who have a record of stopping the inevitable and pointing it out. And we need to all concur together, come together and say, what are you seeing? This is what I'm seeing. What are you seeing? This is what I'm seeing. And actually converse. For me, I was one of those that I didn't want the mandate. I didn't fall for the medical tyranny. And if I see something coming down the pike, I'm going to go to the other people who saw not to fall for that. And I think that that's what we should be doing, is remembering who was not susceptible, who didn't fall for that agenda and that mess, and who did. And then just confer with those who seem to see past the front door, right? And people don't. They just, whoever they're talking to right then, whatever their opinion. Sometimes they get burned out. They don't want to talk about it. And then it happens again and again. And we should always go back to those who, brought some semblance of truth during a critical time. And it seems like the masses just scatter each time there's an emergency. They don't go, okay, who were the first ones to bring this to my attention? I don't want to fall for it again. And at least just scope around and listen and see what the tone, what the conversation is. And I think we're lacking in that discernment.
That's an excellent point, Amber. And I think that people get overwhelmed and they just want a simple solution. And that's the danger. You really have to look past that either or that we're presented with and say, well, where's the both and or the neither? Neither nor.
True.
We don't want either one of these.
Either or, neither
craps.
nor.
Yeah.
Isn't that what the statement is?
Mm-hmm. Oh, you're on mute, John. You're still on mute.
Especially with teenagers and young adults, they're forced to pick a side when both of the two sides are very heavily controlled, and the cognitive map is very tightly controlled on either side. And that's why a 14-year-old near Pittsburgh committed suicide, because she was this is during the days of the 2021 riots, the Black Lives Matter protests. Her friends told her, you have to pick a side. Either you're with Black Lives Matter or you're against. But she had a parent, she was from mixed race marriage. She couldn't choose. And the kids drove her crazy, and she wound up taking her own life.
Oh, that's so
the kind of thing that's where I think protecting the nest has to have we need to really focus, is making sure that there are these simple solutions, these so-called forced solutions or forced sides are being rammed down our throats at the county level, the state level, and the federal level.
Yeah, and that's where we're losing the voice, where if you speak up, then you're a bad person. No matter what you're saying, it doesn't matter. It's just speaking up makes you be on the bad side.
And it's human ego too, because a good friend of mine in Tiffin, Ohio says, how can you dare to question Jim Jordan? I've followed Jim Jordan for 15 years and it would hurt my feelings to know that Jim Jordan's not really a good guy, that he's just reading from a script generated by AlphaGo. And, he doesn't want his feelings hurt. It would hurt too much to admit that Jim Jordan was, I'm not saying he is or isn't on this show. I'm saying that human ego is a big part of this equation.
Well,
it is.
That's something I've really learned recently, is that people can be assets to the CIA without knowing they are. That they cultivate people that can have convictions that are totally consistent with who they are, but they don't realize they're being manipulated. That's exactly what we're seeing everywhere we look. So that's another eye-opener. Sorry, Amber, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I was going to say that there's a lot of what do you call it? Compromise. So there's a lot of compromised individuals. And what I mean by that is, I think especially it falls into stocks, and particular stocks that were bought, or particular things that some of our elected officials went along with, because at the time that was the narrative and they jumped on it because it made sense. But then it's used and utilized in order to capture, to accuse, and to maneuver. And the same with the people who put them in office. So if I have someone who put me in office and really paid for my whole campaign and never asks me for anything, and then comes to me and says, hey.
Yeah, that's the bribery.
That's how I want you to vote. This is how I want you to vote. This is what I want you to do. It's going to take a lot of finagling on my part to say, Well, I'm just not going to do that, because then that person will say, well, you do know the only reason why you were elected is because of me. And I can take those funds away and make sure nobody else votes for you. So then you're like, okay, so for my constituents, I vote 80% of the time the way that needs to help this country. But this 20% that this person is controlling me with, people are going to be mad at me. But the person who would replace me would turn us into a nation of a new world government where we didn't have autonomy and I had no say. So I have to do this for this person so that I can fight the good fight in these other areas that people are screaming for. And I think those are the compromise positions. And you have these lobbyists and people that work together and say, you push them on this, I've got them on that. You get them on this, I've got the votes on that. And so then we can look all day as to who they're connected to or who, they met up with in order to get elected. But you've got a lot of people that want to do good and that went in there to do good. And when they go to vote, you have a machine. And no, and I think researching the particular person gets you nowhere. Researching the machine behind them that pulls that lever, because it ends up what happens. What I found is, like, let's say someone was listening to this and they heard Jim Jordan is a bad guy. Could be, but unless that those same people hear an even-handed, and here's a Democrat that has the same, dirty background or questionable, unless it's like fair back and forth, it already turns off half the people and then they tune out and then they don't come to a compromise, which is what they hope for. So it's more difficult when you're talking about an individual who's elected than the machine or the donors or the people that are pulling those levers. And that they want you to concentrate on that congressman or senator or that person, but that person is only as powerful as the people that back them. And so that's the difficult part, is like, we need to bring attention and ask, is this person telling, let's say, Jim Jordan or Hillary Clinton or this one or that one what to do? Are they doing this?
Yeah.
If that's the case, then we go to those particular people, but people get stuck on just the person. And when you replace the person, doesn't matter, because that machine is still there. It's breaking apart the machine.
Yeah, we saw that bribery machine happen in hospitals so clearly with COVID, that the hospitals were bribed to give people remdesivir and put people on ventilators and give people shots, so, and the doctors and nurses they're employed by the people that are influenced by this bribery. And so they lose their jobs if they don't go along with it. So it's you're taking away on all levels with this whole bribery scheme that goes everywhere now. You're taking away people's autonomy to use their own common sense and their own voices, because it is so pervasive. It's, not just in politics, it's everywhere you look. We're seeing placements of food in grocery stores and the same kind of thing. So there's just compromise everywhere. Besides the bribery, like you pointed out, there's also the threats, which is the other side of it too. You'll lose your job, etc. Yes. Well, Amber, did you have something that you wanted to our show and tell part of the show?
No, I was just jumping in to see, kind of what all you guys had, and just gonna let you bring the links or whatever. Is Tara coming today?
Well, apparently not. Her phone, usually she joins us by phone, and her phone broke a couple days ago. So she was going to try to make it work with the iPad, and I'm guessing it didn't work as well, because she was planning on being here, so something didn't work. Well, I do have one more thing to share, and this is a positive note, so that's kind of cool. And it's about a link showing that there was a Japanese geneticist in 1986 who discovered the music that is innate to DNA, and he converted the nucleotide bases GTC and A to the notes A, C, G, and D, and found all this beautiful music and how it was embedded in so many things, including our DNA. So here's a little clip. There's a video that's about 15 minutes long that's really wonderful, that talks about this. And I think some of us watched that wonderful video from Luc Montagnier, talking about how you can take the DNA, listen to it with a high powerful listening device, and then just play that music to pure water and have it change. So this is the other way around. Can music change our DNA is the question they're asking. I think if you start about 4 minutes or something, I forget what I gave it to you, but
Okay.
and just play about
This
five.
stuff.
Oh, I think you went too far. Maybe, yeah. Go back a little bit. I forget. I think it was
Integral
about 4
collection of
minutes.
sound waves substances. By studying sound waves can affect cellular activity. For instance, specific frequencies have been found to stimulate or inhibit the growth of cells, influence protein synthesis, and even modulate the release of neurotransmitters. These findings suggest that music, as a combination of harmonious frequencies, could potentially interact with our cellular processes, including DNA-related mechanisms. The field of cymatics offers a captivating perspective on the relationship between sound, vibrations, and the formation of intricate geometric patterns in various substances. By studying the visual representations of sound waves in materials like sand or water, researchers have made remarkable discoveries about the vibrational energy emitted by sound. This exploration into the realm of cymatics raises intriguing questions about the potential impact of music, which consists of complex sound waves, on the human body, including our DNA. Cymatics has revealed that specific sound frequencies can generate mesmerizing patterns in matter. As sound waves travel through a medium, they cause the particles within that medium to vibrate. These vibrations, when organized and coordinated, manifest as intricate geometric shapes that can be observed and studied. The notion that sound waves have the power to visibly change matter leads us to consider the possibility that music, with its rich and intricate collection of sound waves, may possess the ability to influence not only our physical surroundings, but also the very essence of our being, our DNA. When we listen to music, we experience a symphony of different frequencies and harmonies. Each musical note corresponds to a specific frequency and wavelength, creating a complex tapestry of sound. These musical vibrations, just like any other sound waves, have the potential to interact with our bodies at a fundamental level. Within our bodies, DNA serves as the blueprint for life, containing the genetic instructions that shape who we are. It is composed of nucleotide bases, and each base has its own vibrational properties. Given that sound waves can affect the vibrational patterns in matter, it is not far-fetched to hypothesize that music, as a collection of intricate sound waves, might influence the vibrational state of our DNA. The potential influence of music on DNA brings to mind the concept of resonance. Resonance occurs when two objects share similar frequencies, causing one object to vibrate in response to the vibrations of the other. It is possible that the resonant frequencies present in music could interact with the vibrational frequencies of our DNA, creating a harmonious resonance within our cells. If music has the power to influence the vibrational state of our DNA, it could potentially impact gene expression, cellular processes, and ultimately, our overall well-being. This opens up a new realm of possibilities for utilizing music as a therapeutic tool, capable of restoring balance and promoting healing at a fundamental level.
Well, it kind of gets a little repetitive, so
The
maybe
exploration
that's
of sound
long
and
enough. Or you can keep going. But yeah, I think music and also light, visual patterns, color, all these things affect our very essence of ourselves. Did we lose Amber? Anyway,
Yes,
I thought that was a great way to kind of end it. I think there are, different ways of healing. I think our medical system is being shown to be wanting at this point. And there's other things that we haven't been able to consider as healing modalities because they've been kept from us, with the stealing of all of Tesla's information. And Raymond Rife, is that his name? Raymond Royal. His name is Royal.
Right.
Yeah, that there are other ways to heal besides just taking medication that can also hurt us. So, on that
It
note,
is very hard. It is very hard to convince people that something that they've been doing for 50 or 60 years has been wrong or to the detriment of their kids' well-being. But like I said, my motto for the next week is going to be get in the muck. I saw at Gainesville, Georgia, I saw a line of kids out the door at a Burger King, out the door because it was next to a high school.
mm-hmm.
And I just, like I told our friend in Troy, Michigan, I was fatigued. I really didn't have enough energy. If I had a little more energy, I would have gone to a print shop and printed up some cards that said, turn off the TV, cut out the fast food, and put on a 2D QR code with the Smith-Mundt Act and handed them to the kids. I have done that before. I need to do it much more because that is where the rubber hits the road. Everything that we do here has to come down to putting something in people's hands that they can get together and instead of going in 100 different directions, be unified and say, no, we don't want this in our school lunches. We don't want Burger King in our school lunches. We don't want glyphosate. And I think that young people are pretty, their minds are pretty agile. And if we can get the raw information into their hands, they're going to take it to their parents. And at that point, the parents are forced to say, I'll look into it.
Yep. It's we can't stop now. We got to keep going, and it's all good. I think it's a wonderful thing that it's happening in many different self-organizing groups, and that's where the change has to come from. We don't want to leave it to Klaus and his buddies and NATO and the UN that's been infiltrated from the very beginning from Nazis. Let's remember that. That's who started the UN. So that's why they're not treating humans as sovereign beings. There is an explanation. So thank you, everybody. Thank you all for signing in here, and we'll see you next week.
Okay, see you tomorrow, Carol.
Okay.
And I'm going to play us out with Fly Like an Osprey.
Oh, good.
At 4 o'clock today, 6 o'clock Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, we have John Scott Perez, who's going to come on our Zoom call and talk about the actual mechanics of Allison V, and the new vape product he developed that will work with the music, with the other things we've been talking about to get rid of COVID and COVID-like symptoms. So that's, again, 6 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Pacific. Please join us on our Zoom call.
Here we go. John. Looking forward to it.
Norman Smith, Fly Like an Osprey. Here we go. What's wrong? How come it's not playing?
I don't know, but Norman just came on and said he's going to be on Jesse's show, so I'll just re-mention that. Yeah. I don't remember the day or time, but it was there down at the bottom. So keep your eyes open for Norman's interview by Jesse.
Tick, tick, Tick tock, do 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 do. Tick tock, do 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 do. Time keeps on slipping, slipping, slipping into the future. Time keeps on slipping, slipping, slipping into the future. I want to fly like an osprey to the sea. Fly like an osprey, let my spirit carry me. I want to fly like an osprey till I'm free. Lord, to the revolution. Feed the babies that don't have enough to eat. Shoe the children with no shoes on the feet. House the people living in the street. Oh, there's a solution. I want to fly like an osprey to the sea. Fly like an osprey, let my spirit carry me. I want to fly like an osprey till I'm free. Oh, through the revolution. Time keeps on slipping, slipping, slipping into the future. Time keeps on slipping, slipping, slipping